stopping because I screwed it up.
Okay.
And welcome to the shift. This is when the shift hits the fan. Now, last week we talked a lot about stress, but we had so many people contact us after the call and actually during the call asking us to do more because stress is killing them. And as Linda and I have been chatting back and forth, we really realized that it is really a stress. Stress is so many things and so many different things to different people. It can be a small little stress, and it's not small at all, but being a mom and having a colicky child and have somebody say to you, well, they'll get over it sooner or later, and all you can think of is, I haven't slept for 10 days, and that's really not what I needed to hear right now. And the effect that we actually have on other people, we cause stress. And sometimes when we're hurt, we cause stress to our partners because we need to vent, so we put stressors on them because we want them to feel as bad as we feel. So stress is given and taken in a lot of different ways, and we wanted to delve a little bit further into this because we know that most people don't actually recognize that they're under stress. Last week I told you about me, in fact, working and then stopping, and I mean sincerely stopping. I was one of those people who kind of stop working, but I kind of don't. I'm like phoning the same old coworkers and, trying to, it's that transition that you get from corporate to not doing anything. That can be from being in the corporate world and then becoming an entrepreneur or retiring, or an illness knocks you out and you can't go back, and you're kind of still tied to that life. That in itself can be stressful just because you don't have that support system anymore. You don't have what it is. We see this when a death occurs. That stress is incredibly deep because it's piled on with grief. It's piled on with not having the knowledge that you need. It has a lot of facets itself. And so here we go. We're in this, and we go by it. We say it's a part of our lives. It's, we have to take it. We talked about this last week too. So Lynn and I were sitting here talking. We should find some very, ways to understand it, to catch it right when it happens. And when other people give it to you, not be nasty and give it back, but try to relax the whole entire situation. And there's ways to do that. And there's ways to do it whereby the result is always a good one. Now I'm going to start off with this, and I know Linda's got some great ideas as well. But what I always do when things are kind of getting out of hand and people's anger and the stress levels are coming up, I just question just things like, why do you feel that way about that? Like, how did that, what triggered you to feel this angry or this emotional about this particular subject? Can you help me understand that? And that's 50 degrees of separation on that one there. It's an immediately calming factor on them where they have to actually re-engage the logic side of the brain to answer the question, and the emotional side of the brain can't have it all because the right brain's going, I need that. So excuse me for a minute, I have to answer a question. So blood pressure drops, things happen internally for you. And I know, Linda, we want to talk as well, and I'll hand it over to you about the diseases now and the crisis to our health when it comes to stress.
Oh, absolutely, Mark, and of course, neither you nor I are physicians, but we can certainly speak to what we've learned through research and what we've experienced ourselves. And I know that reading some medical periodicals that they're finding now that stress could very well be, one of the number one causes of a lot of our leading diseases, such as heart disease in women and even cancer, because you're hanging on to all of this negative energy. And you know what, Mark, and this might be a topic for another show that we do, everything is energy, even you and me. I mean, if you were to take your hand, as solid as it looks, and put it under a microscope, a really strong microscope, you would find that it's not this solid object at all. It's just a whole bunch of molecules moving back and forth at a very, very high rate of speed. In other words, it's energy. And energy can be positive and it can be negative. And when it's positive, you can feel it. It's like, when you're happy, when you're very calm, like you're walking in the woods or something, or in my case, walking along the beach. Everything is just wonderful. And then it can also be negative when you're angry, when you feel this stress build up. I know in my life, not probably, but most definitely, especially in our younger years when Randy and I were first married, the only arguments and stressful moments we had were over money. This stuff that's
now
paper.
Money.
Yeah, money. And all that is paper with ink on it. But money causes stress because of the way that people perceive it. They look at their bank balance, and then they look at the mortgage payment and realize that there's not enough in that bank balance to cover that mortgage payment. And so what happens? They begin to worry, fret, fume, and, quote, stress out about it. And all this negative energy is absorbed by our bodies, by ourselves, and since we're not necessarily releasing it at that point in time, way back in evolution, I think stress was put in there as our fight or flight. If a saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, you run. And then as you run and you get into safety, the event is over and you go on your merry way. But today in our world, that same I guess syndrome or whatever, the fight or flight, comes to the forefront when we feel ourselves in a situation and we start to stress out. But we don't run and expel that energy. We hold on to it. And that in and of itself is released in our bodies, and then that's what they're finding is the cause of a lot of the disease out there. It's not necessarily genetic. As a matter of fact, they're saying now that genetics is maybe only about 10% of your overall health. The rest of it is the environment, and that environment includes your emotional environment or the stressors or the non-stressors that you have in your life.
Well, that's just it, Linda. And, I think the biggest problem that we have is, you mentioned fight or flight, and that sensation or that reaction would be a better way to put it, has been dulled over time because we are so stressed about everything that sometimes we miss the indicators of saying you're in danger. And that's why a lot of people, in taking it one step further than that, they don't recognize the dangers in their body or how their body is telling them, like the migraines and stomach aches and things like that. They just say, oh, well, it's probably, it's migraine, I'll just go take a pill for that. And they don't make any adjustment because it's magnified so much now because people are under stress constantly and have no outlet for it because they don't even recognize the fact that they're really under stress. They just accept it. Well, my life is like this. I have a hectic life. I'm always under pressure. I just, Advil. I mean, we wouldn't have any commercials or any need for half the pharmaceuticals that are out there if people just had other ways and means and understanding. And that's why I love the show, because people can look and say, wait a second, that doesn't have to be a part of my life. I can change my life.
Exactly, Mark. And tagging onto that, in our hectic lives, what some of the questions that I ask people are, well, what do you do to relax? Oh, I don't have time to relax. Well, what do you do to get exercise? Oh, I don't have time to get exercise because I'm doing this, and this. And the thing is, Mark, it doesn't take much time to take a time out and a quiet moment and just close your eyes and breathe deeply for a little bit and just relax. 10 minutes. And your body rejuvenates itself. It says to you, thank you. And you can actually feel the sensations when you take the time to just shut everything off. And the same goes for exercise. It's not like you have to go to a gym and work out for 2 hours at a time. Simple things like if you work in a building and it has stairs, jog up and down the stairs. I remember I used to work in for a company, and I did a lot of computer work. I was a computer operator, and we were in a 3-story building, and things would get so hectic, number one, and then number two, staring at that computer screen all day would kind of make me sleepy. So I would literally go and I would run up and down the stairs, and some of the people in the other building kind of thought it was pretty goofy. They would meet me sometimes, go, what are you doing? I'm running up and down the stairs. But Mark, I came back so incredibly refreshed. And it didn't take any time at all. And the other thing, that when I hear people telling me that I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that, I start asking them, well, do you have some kind of a day planner? Do you schedule things? And they say, well, yes, I do. And I said, well, schedule this little bit of exercise like you would an important meeting, and schedule your quiet time, whether you call it meditation or you just are taking a time out. Schedule it. Put it on your schedule. Make it as important as the most important meeting of the day, and then when the dinger goes off that it's time to do that, stop everything, shut everything down, and go and do it. And people who actually follow that advice feel like they actually have gained more hours in their day instead of having less time because they're more relaxed and they've released that stress that they probably didn't even know that they had.
Well, perfect examples there, Linda, because people don't schedule their own well-being into their lives. Wow. Now, can you just say, isn't that crazy? But I'll give you one step up. Working in the cancer research facilities and with them that I do, I am amazed at how many people will phone and say, can I reschedule my treatments because I have an important meeting? And I sit there going, no. I know this is kind of maybe a little bit mean, but it only gets the point across when I say to them, I want you to think about something before you decide to do this. It's certainly your decision, but they are going to walk over your cold, dead body as they leave the building. So you really need to rethink your priorities. And we don't. Women are the worst about this. Now, I don't have a lot of this, but I know my mom was like this. So if us kids were out, she wouldn't sleep. She'd be pacing the floor. And, of course, my dad, where I luckily inherited things from him, he would say, look, if there's a problem, we're going to hear about it. There's no use boring trouble. We talked about this last week. Or, manifesting problems when there aren't anything there, like they're going to come home. And if they don't come home, you're going to need your sleep, because if something happens, we're going to have to deal with it with calm minds and souls. And we do that. But I don't even think people make really good decisions, even in business, or even planning things when they're not de-stressed, when they don't have a clear and focused mind on things. You can't work at your optimal best. And I always say that this is like athletes. You see them taking a break from the field. Why do you think they're doing that?
Right. They're not only resting their bodies, but they're also recharging and releasing the stress that they had on the field, because I guess to spectators it may look like play, but they're thinking about the next move, and they're thinking about the the part that they play in supporting their team, or if it's a solo event, then they're actually visualizing their next steps. So yeah, they're de-stressing. We just don't call it that. We say they're resting.
Well, maybe that's what people should do. I'm taking a little break. I have a girlfriend that does that, and interesting place, mind you, but it's the only place that she can actually go during her work time during the day that people don't bother her. She throws her cell in her desk drawer and then goes into the washroom for 10 minutes. She turns off the light in there, locks the door, and takes her time. And she just, like you said, Linda, she just deep breathes, releases things, does a couple of neck rolls, and jelly rolls her body, and she comes popping right back out. And you're right, she feels like she's got energy to deliver. And she is one of the most well-balanced people I know because she takes that time for herself. And it doesn't matter. I've seen her almost in the middle of conversation say, you know what, I got to go. Because I know that in that conversation, perhaps her blood pressure is rising, she's not getting across to the person that she's speaking to, and she knows they're putting stress on her, so she'll just, hands up, I'm walking away from this. And you and Randy have an awesome relationship. And I think, too, it's because, respect for each other. I mean, that just goes without saying. But I'm sure that there's times that in your marriage where things weren't so great and, kind of like both of you, the hairs on the backs of your necks went up with something. Tell me, who was the one, as if I didn't know, but let's tell our viewers out here, who is the one who calmed them down? And how did you do that? Because I think a lot of women, that would be key for them, because fights in marriages are ridiculous. They just go way too far because that's who you're connected to the most in your life, and that's who you tear apart to the bone.
You're so right, Mark. And thank you. We do have an absolutely fabulous marriage, but I want to make sure that our listeners understand something. From the very beginning, we both retained our own individuality. I mean, that's why we fell in love with each other in the first place. And I can tell you, we don't always agree on things. And I'm glad that we don't, because I think it would be incredibly boring. But you're right, we've had some doozies. And you guessed it, I'm usually the one that calms things down. And what I found early on worked best, as angry as I was, and you're right, I have said some things that later I did apologize for, and so did Randy, but I was usually the one seeing that this whole situation is incredibly out of control, and so I stepped away. I said, you know what, we're not getting anywhere with this. I'm going to go do something else right now. And I would step away, and then we would come back, and then we would talk about it when we were both calmed down. Because when anyone is angry, totally stressed out and upset, your rational brain disengages completely. Because again, it's instinct. You're in that fight or flight mode, and so that thinking part, the creative part of your brain, totally shuts down, and so there's not going to be any working through the situation at all. Now, as we've been married longer and longer, we've come to notice those events or those times where we're just not going to see things eye to eye in that moment. And I don't know, what was their name? Glenn Pickering and his wife did a book called Tag. And I love that because, have you read it?
Oh, yeah. And then they did, I've been working with them on a couple of stage shows that we've done in the past as well.
It's awesome, and it's so funny because you break down these arguments and you call it tag, and then whatever you were arguing about really didn't matter anymore. And Randy and I have caught ourselves when we start doing a point counterpoint, one of us will look at the other and say, "Oh, tag," and And then all of a sudden we both could just stop and we stare and then we start laughing because we realized that we had just stepped into that perpetual hole, and we truly were playing a game of tag. It was so funny. But yeah, that's how. Go ahead.
Linda?
Yes, Mark, go ahead.
Actually, I think everyone does that, right? Especially, but like I said, in marriage, we manage to, in relationships, we manage to hurt the most because, and on one hand, that's almost a good thing because we know that that's the person we can trust the most with those feelings. But the bottom line is you can't keep that up for forever either. So you're going to have to come up with ways and mechanisms. But I highly recommend that book, Linda. It's a tremendous idea. But it's something, too, that it brings us back to that childlike reactions and how we viewed the world back then, because color didn't matter. And if somebody picked up on your truck in your sandbox, you just kind of looked to the left to see if there was some other kind of little something you could play with. And every once in a while, of course, all of them would want the same dump truck, and there had to be negotiations done. But children, in fact, tend to release things better because they'll just all out bawl, right?
Right.
They just cry and scream and kick, so they release it. Now, as we grow older, we understand and are told many times that that's not acceptable behavior. But that's the problem, isn't it? Nobody tells us what the behavior should be or how we do that. We come up as adults going, and again, we'll use it, suck it up. And don't act like that in public. You don't say things like that. You don't do them. Be polite. All of this stuff, and then it just piles on top of your shoulders because no one ever gives you an outlet for it. And I know, Linda, you have some amazing of calming people down and looking at the brighter side of things. And so let's give our listeners some tips. I know we talked a little bit about how bad it is. Well, let's give them more tips on how they can de-stress. We talked about taking some time out for yourself. And you're right, it doesn't take very long. A 15-minute walk is an amazing thing. Just a walk. Like, I just got to get out and take a walk. Spending some time locking yourself in the bathroom. These types of things are all good. So what's some more that they could do, Linda?
Well, a couple of things immediately came to mind, and people hear me say this all of the time, and it's so funny because I'll even get phone calls and I've been told, yes, Linda, I heard your voice in my head just telling me to breathe. Because when we get stressed out, Mark, and I think we've talked about this before, we hang on to it. And if you'll notice, when you get really stressed out, if you pay attention, you are actually holding your breath. Mm-hmm. And so a great way to release that stress is to just deep breathe. Just breathe in, breathe out, and if you can learn and practice how to belly breathe, that's even better because it actually massages your diaphragm and it helps with a lot of other things as well. But just breathe. And I have two daughters, and one is pretty laid back like me, and then the other daughter is pretty high strung, and she'll be the first one to tell you that. And so I'm forever saying, just breathe, just stop, just breathe, and then let's deal with what it is, the issue that's causing you to be stressed out. As you notice too, when I'm saying breathe, I actually slow down my speech. So if you're encountering someone who is angry and high-strung and stressed out, you might try first breathing yourself, because a lot of times they're going to, without knowing it, they're going to start to mimic what you're doing, and then you just start slowing down your speech. And you'll find that is actually, you are having an impact and effect on them, because you're actually calming them down without looking at them and saying, calm down. Because I don't know about you, but when somebody's upset and I tell them to calm down, that usually kind of escalates it up again. The other thing, as you back off and you can close yourself off, get some quiet time. If your mind is still running 90 to nothing and you can't seem to calm it down, take that moment, take a pen and paper, and write at least 5 or 10 things in your life you are totally grateful for. Even if it's the air conditioning in the middle of the summer, just something, or the sun is shining, or it's raining and it's wonderful because it's watering the plants. Just 5 or 10 things that you're grateful for. And you'll also find that when you're finished with that the stressful moment is gone. It doesn't matter anymore because you've put yourself back into a relaxed, calm, positive vibration by thinking about these things that you truly are grateful for.
Yeah, those are good. Another one too, if you're really feeling stressed or you feel it creeping up on you, is just taking your right or left hand with your thumb and rubbing your one thumb right up against the pad of your thumb, right in that area there. It's a great pressure point. But you know, more than anything, and it's funny because a lot of Eastern medicine is based on pressure points and things like that. But another thing it does, it just disengages the emotion because you're tooling something. Okay, so if you were stressed working on your computer, something that would actually work is you picking up a pen and writing something, writing different emotions, like in different thought processes down. Or if you get up and again walk away for a couple of minutes and come back, it's disengaging, and that's the whole point of it. When you're in high stress, you don't want to disengage because you're getting adrenaline from it. You know, so your body's kind of going, this is kind of cool, because this would be the same. It doesn't differentiate between the thrill of the hunt and the thrill of skydiving or doing all those exciting things that you might do and the adrenaline of stress. It just knows, right? It's a chemical. It's adrenaline. Mm-hmm. So it can go, hey, wow, what you doing this time, and not recognizing that you're bursting some blood vessels in your brain until it's way too late for you. This is heart attack. This is stroke. This is plaque in your arteries. It is all of these bad things. It's just like eating junk food, and we're not going to go there today with all of that stuff. But we are going to come back to that because people have to start looking after themselves. But we're talking about the danger that stress is. And it's something that it's not somebody hitting you over the head with a hammer, so it's not something you feel. But you will know it if you take some time to step away from situations. And as Linda said, I'm sure that in the middle of an argument, it's not very easy to back down. But you will find if, you know, as you argue, most people do, you kind of get closer to that person, kind of in their face, because you're trying to get your point across. And you're not doing a good job because you've already disengaged the proper part of your brain that can make logical decisions to give it to the stress and the adrenaline. So if you can only remember one thing, in the middle of that, 2 steps back and breathe, like Linda said, 2 steps back and taking a big gulp of breath and kind of, I call it like sit back on your haunches, because a couple of things will happen. Your shoulders will straighten. They won't come. They'll have to go back. The breath will make them go back, and so we're taking the 2 steps back. And that really does put the simmer on the fire as well. So, Linda, anything else that we can add here today that might help them?
No, just to give themselves permission to not be perfect all the time. You know, each and every one of us is going to get stressed out from time to time, and we're only going to make it worse if we beat up on ourselves and say, oh, I wasn't going to get stressed out today, and I'm a loser, and then you start that negative self-talk. But instead, give yourself a pat on the back for recognizing and being aware of the fact that, oh, I can feel this stress. And then give yourself another pat on the back because then you were able to step back, take some breaths, calm yourself down, and then reapproach the situation more creatively and maybe even from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. You know, and you brought up money stressors. For almost all the time, for almost all people, married or not, money always seems to be an issue. And for you and I, it's being an entrepreneur, I am able to determine what kind of money I will make or not make just by the actions that I take. When you're working in a job, that may not be as easy because you're confined to whatever they're going to give you. And so I think, too, people have to release themselves. You want to get out there and have some passion with your hobby, passion in your life with your loved ones and different things that you do after a stressful day. And don't just come home, flop yourself on the couch and grab a glass of scotch. Do something else, like create something in your life that gives you pure, unadulterated joy when you do it. And that way, you're going to be able to have a place to be, a place to go. And when you know that you have that place, and again, it's not the bottom of an alcohol bottle, when you have a place to put passion, the fire, and the joy, you're going to find that things that come up in your life are going to be easier to handle all the way around, because you won't be thinking of the burn. You're going to be thinking of the joy. And well, you know what? 20 minutes from now, I'm going to be out running in the park, breathing some great fresh air, or I'm going to be putting together a model airplane, or I'm going to be playing with my children, helping my wife cook dinner, meeting my friends, whatever. You're going to be able to disengage from the situation. But if you don't have somewhere else to go, you don't have your quote-unquote happy place, you're just going to go home stressed and you're going to kick the cat. That's
right.
The way life goes. It just snowballs, right?
Right, exactly. I love that, and being able to have a passion to go to look forward to at the end of a stressful day for a lot of people is so incredibly rewarding. So that's probably one of the best pieces of advice that we've given today, is to find something that you're truly passionate about and make it a point to do it, every day if you can, or meeting great friends. So I think that's a great way to close out the show for this evening, Mark. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just want to tell everyone, you're up on our screens right now. You're going to see Linda's site, my own site. We also want to tell you that we do have personal coaching available by each of us. There's contact information on our sites that you're available. We're out here. This is not just the only thing we do on a Monday night. We have some things happening out there, and we're helping people all the time. So we hope that you enjoyed this session and that it gave you some strength and some peace and some tools to use when you're stressed to the max. And we're going to be back again on next Monday night with some incredible new information. We haven't quite decided what it's going to be about, but it's always going to be there to help you make your life better. So good night, everyone.
Good night.